special group of people.
Dueling rallies in a state where they are in a deadlock right now when it comes to the race to the White House. We just listened to Kamala Harris in Raleigh. We're taking now to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, where the former president is now at the mic.
Carolina, you know that. I'm thrilled to be back in this incredible state with thousands of proud, hardworking American patriots. But I'd like to ask you one very simple, easy to answer question. Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? I think so. I'm here today with a message of hope for all Americans with your vote in this election. Oh, it's coming up so nice. We're down to 6 days, maybe sort of 5. Maybe 5 the way you count it. 6 days, can you imagine? I will end inflation. I will stop the massive invasion of criminals into our country. And I will bring back a thing called the American dream. Isn't that nice? Because we haven't had that. We haven't had that in a long time. Our country will be bigger, better, bolder, richer, safer, and stronger than ever before. And this election is a choice between whether we'll have 4 more years, think of this, 4 more years of gross incompetence, the most corrupt, horrible people. These are horrible people. Oops, we should get along with everybody. They're horrible people. You know, some people you just can't get along with. You can't. But whether we're going to have 4 years of incompetence and failure, or whether we'll begin the 4 greatest years in the history of our country, that's what's going to happen. And I'm asking you to be excited about the future again. You have to be excited about it. We have a great potential. If we have to go another 2 days beyond that term, we're not going to have a great... We have to get this done now because we're not going to have a second chance. There'll never be a second chance. It's too far gone. We're really, you know, we are a failing nation. We are a nation in decline. But don't worry. We will not be a nation in decline for too much longer, I'll tell you. We'll be a nation of incline as opposed to decline. But I'm asking you to dream big again. You're going to have to dream big again. It's going to be hard for you to do that because you've gone through a long period. But we had some great 4 years. This will be America's new golden age. This will be better than what we had even 4 years ago. Remember, we were energy independent. We had everything. Every problem facing us can be solved, but now the fate of our nation is in your hands. And this is a very important state. Number one, I love the state. Number two, we've always won. I won the primaries and I won the elections, and I didn't have to worry about it. So, you know, if you think 2016, we did great. 2020, we did much better, actually. You know, they say, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist. We only got about, what, 12 million more votes, right? But this is the best of all. This is more enthusiasm than there was for even 2016 or 2020. This is the best. Nobody's ever seen it. I just saw General Kellogg, wherever he may be backstage. Where is he? Oh, there he is. Look at that general. He's a real general, not like Millie. Not like Billy. Not like Kelly, low. He's a low IQ guy. But this is a real general. He's great. But he said backstage, this reminds me, sir, of 2016. I said, thank you very much. That's a good reminder, isn't it? He's a great guy. This Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala that you've had enough, that you're not going to take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here, Kamala. Get the hell out of here. The worst vice president, the worst border czar. She's the worst border czar in the history of the world. There's never been a border in the history of the world that allowed criminals to pour through. 21 million people, think of it. Well, we're running a campaign of solutions to save America. an America which they have virtually destroyed during their almost 4-year period of rule. Kamala Harris, a low IQ individual, is running a campaign of hate, anger, and retribution. See, I'm very nice to them. They're not nice to us. She spends all of her time complaining about everything, but does nothing about it. She's going to do this, she's going to do that. Why the hell didn't she do it, right? So now she's talking about what she's going to do on the border. Well, I'm going to do this and that, and this and that. All they had to do was leave the border alone. We had the safest border in the history of our country. In fact, to prove it, put up my chart, the favorite chart. I love that chart. I love that chart. That was the day I left office. We had the lowest number ever. The day I left office was where the red arrow is on the bottom. And then it became like an Elon Musk rocket ship, right? Look at that. Look what happens to it. Right after that, it went to hell. They let it go to hell. We had remain in Mexico. You couldn't come into our country. You had to remain. You think that was easy to get from Mexico? I had to be very threatening. I always said, you're not going to do it? No, sir, we're not. Why would we do that? I said, because if you don't do it, I'm going to put a 100% tariff on your cars coming in. Sir. Took me about 1 minute. They went from, we will absolutely not do that, sir. Why would we do a thing like that? Remain in Mexico. They have to remain in your country. I said, no. I tell you why. You know why? They went from that to saying, sir, we would be delighted to do whatever you'd like, whatever you. Now I said, we're going to put a 100% tariff on your cars if you don't do it. So they said, we'd love to have our people we would love to have MS-13 gang members, criminals, people from mental institutions stay in our country. It would be our great honor, sir. It was really amazing. It took less than a minute. Or what she's going to do about inflation. I'm going to do things about it. She caused the inflation by screwing up my energy policies. She caused the inflation and spending way too much money on the Green New scam. She caused it. But why didn't she do something about it, right? Or what she's going to do to get the economy going. We're going to do this and that. Oh, by the way, her plans are the plans of a simpleton. They're not going to work. We'll be in a depression like 1929. What we're going to do to get the economy. But why didn't she do it? Why didn't she do all these things? She's saying, we're going to do this. She's trying to disassociate herself from Sleepy Joe Biden. I like this audience. I didn't say it. Well, the guys, who just said that? He can handle himself. They scream, she's an idiot. But I didn't say it. I didn't say it. In fact, I'd like to admonish you, sir, you should not say that, please. This way, the press can't get me. You know, they say, well, I know you want to. It's really good. Well, no, I don't accept that. So I would never accept a thing like that. No, but she is. He can handle himself, that guy, too. She and Crooked Joe head up the worst administration in the history of our country. They've made Jimmy Carter look like a truly great president. In all fairness to Jimmy, he didn't let 21 million people, many of them criminals and those that are mentally ill, pour into our country. He didn't let that. Jimmy Carter didn't allow that to happen. Last night, Kamala made a speech, not much of one, with a paid-for audience, and all she talked about was Donald Trump.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I will speak about Donald Trump. Donald Trump, 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 Donald
Do you believe it? Because she and Joe have no achievements, only failure and gloom. See, that was so perfect. It worked out perfectly. I said, how am I going to say? Normally you'd stop and you'd say, please take a look at the video. But I have some very talented people. I say, when I say Donald Trump, you just let that go. They did a good job. And then I finished the sentence, because they have no achievements, because they're a disaster. She suffers from a very serious disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. Trump derangement syndrome. TDS, sometimes referred to as TDS. It's quite serious. It's inflicted havoc on some lives. But many Democrats suffer from that disease, and it's only because of one reason, because we're winning. This week, Kamala has been comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. And now, speaking on a call for her campaign last night, Joe Biden finally said what he and Kamala really think of our supporters. He called them garbage. And they mean it, even though, without question, my supporters are far higher quality than Crooked Joe or Lying Kamala. My response to Joe and Kamala is very simple. You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. You just can't. And you can't be president if you hate the American people. And there's a lot of hatred there. Kamala Harris is not fit to be president of the United States. She doesn't have the intellect, the stamina, or that special quality that real leaders must have to lead. We know what that is. It's a special quality. Joe Biden's comments were the direct result of Kamala's and Tim Walz, you know? You know who that is? His decision to portray everyone who isn't voting for them as evil or subhuman. You're not subhuman. I'm looking at you. You are not subhuman. And we know it's what they believe, because look how they've treated you. They've treated you like garbage, frankly. They've treated you like garbage. You know what? The truth is, they've treated our whole country like garbage, whether they meant to or not, because they're grossly incompetent people, and they've destroyed our country. Our country is suffering right now like it's never suffered, with inflation. And with the infliction, think of it, they've allowed millions and millions of people to come into our country that are criminals, that are the highest level criminals. 13,099 Border Patrol, which endorsed me, by the way, very strongly. And it wasn't like I had any competition. 13,099 murderers, many of them murdered more than one person. 13,000, these are the numbers from Border Patrol during their term. 13,099 murders were let into our country. You have drug lords, you have terrorists, you have people from mental institutions. They're all let into our country. And I actually feel it's number 2 or number 3 on the list of things. Number 1 is the economy. Number 2 is inflation. Number 3 is what they've done to our border, what they've done to our country. They call it immigration. It's not immigration. It's horrible. It's horrible. And I think that it's, frankly, should be number 1 on the list. I think inflation's terrible. What they've done with inflation is gross incompetence. But when they allow 21 million people, and it's probably much more, that doesn't even include the gotaways, you know, gotaways. These are people that just run across the border. What they've done to our country is never There's never going to be an excuse for what they've done to this country. For the past 9 years, Kamala and her party have called us racist, bigots, fascists, deplorables, irredeemables, Nazis, and they've called me Hitler. Call me Hitler. You know, many years ago, I had a father who was a great guy. He was a strong guy, a legitimate guy, strong. But, you know, he always used to tell me, never use the word Nazi and never use the word Hitler. Now we're called Nazis, and I'm called Hitler. I'm not Hitler. Boy, my father, he's looking down. Well, my mother, I know she's looking down. My father is a little questionable because he was a little rough. I think he's looking down because he was a good guy. He was a strong guy, but he was a good guy. But he's looking down. He said, can you imagine? That's what they're calling my son. I told them for years, literally, never use the term Nazi or Hitler. Now they're using it on us. It's unbelievable. They've bullied you. They've demeaned us. They've demonized us and censored us and deplatformed us and weaponized the power of our own government against us. They've gone after their political opponent, me. It's unbelievable. Did you see? Donald Trump wants to put us in jail. Donald Trump is going to go after some of the scum that you see back there, that's so dishonest. Donald Trump is doing horrible things. He wants to put us in prison. That's what they've been trying to do to me for 3 years. They got the story mixed up. And we won the big case in Florida already. We're doing very well. We're doing very well. Remember? Oh, we got him in Florida. That was the documents case, and I had the Presidential Records Act and lots of other things. But Joe Biden had the same case except times 10, because he took it out when he wasn't president. He did a lot of things. And they found him guilty, but they let him go because he was mentally incompetent. But they said he could be president. So they said, he can't stand trial. He's mentally incompetent. He's got no memory. And he's just got it. He just doesn't have what it takes, okay? But think of this. Here's the ruling. He can't stand trial because he's mentally incompetent, but he can be the president of the United States. Figure that one out. Mr. Congressman, figure that one out, Hudson. Can you imagine? They have taken your money. They've thrown open your borders to criminals and terrorists. They've flooded your towns with deadly drugs and death. They've given you jobs to illegal migrants and sent our blood and treasure to fight really stupid foreign wars, countries that you've never heard of, countries that you and your children have never even heard of. This Tuesday is your chance to stand up and declare that you are not going to take it anymore. You're not going to take it. 6 days from now, we can turn the page forever on this failed and corrupt administration. They are corrupt. They're failed and they're corrupt. They're the worst administration. Joe Biden is the worst president in the history of our country. And his partner, now she's trying to convince everyone, oh, well, I really had nothing to do with anything, you know. I'm sure he loves hearing that. She is the worst vice president in the history of our country. By the way, if you go back a few months, everybody was saying she's the worst vice president. She's incompetent. She's a dope. She's everything you can imagine. All of a sudden, they decided they better get politically correct, okay? And they chose her over 12 people that are far more competent. We can declare once and for all that we are done with their hatred. We are done with their hysteria. We are done with their hoaxing, lying, cheating, scheming, plundering, and stealing. And we're not going to let them divide and destroy America any longer. And that goes for Barack Hussein Obama, too. He's a divider. He's a divider. And Michelle, oh, she said bad things about me. Ooh. Michelle got out there the other day. Oh, I've been very nice to her. I guess that means I don't have to be nice anymore, right? Oh, I'm looking forward to this. No, Obama was a great divider. He was a great, great divider. What we have built is the biggest, broadest, most incredible coalition and the greatest political movement in American history, I think in any history, if you want to know the truth. It's made up of the hard-working men and women who make this country run, who make this country great. We've brought together veterans and union members, soldiers and steelworkers, farmers and auto workers, and patriotic moms and dads of every race, religion, color, and creed, right? We're welcoming historic numbers of African Americans and Hispanic Americans and Asian Americans and Arab Americans. And we're uniting Christians and Jews and Catholics and evangelicals and Muslims and Mormons and everyone who simply wants one thing. They want one thing: to make America great again. That's all they want. Our campaign has been endorsed by the 400,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police. And I don't believe there's a police organization in America that hasn't endorsed us. And I don't believe there's even a single policeman or policewoman, a cop. That's another thing. My father always used to say, never call them cops. That's disrespectful. I don't know. I think, look, I'm going with my father. So we're going to say policeman or policewoman. Never call them cops. That's disrespectful, son. I don't know. Makes sense? If my father said it, I do it. But think of that. I don't think a single policeman or policewoman has endorsed her. She was a leader of defund the police. That's hard to get an endorsement. Yes, I was in charge of defunding the police for 10 years. I'd love to have your endorsement. But then we had the Border Patrol agents who are so incredible. For 4 years, they haven't called her. She hasn't called. Think of this. 4 years. I said, has she ever called? Has Biden ever called? Sleepy Joe? No. I said, you don't mean no. You mean maybe they haven't called you, but have they called you? We had the top 10 leaders up. They gave me the best endorsement you've ever heard. And the worst statement about her, they said she's grossly incompetent. And then she's supposed to be running. I don't believe, they say it's like a close race. I can't believe it's a close race. Not that I just can't believe it. But I said, did she ever call you? No, sir. Never once. I said, you mean in almost 4 years? No, she never called, sir. Never once. Nobody. She never called anybody. She was in charge of the border, whether you call her borders or she doesn't want that name anymore because it was so bad. She did such a bad job. But she was in charge of the border. Think of this. And she never called Border Patrol one time in 4 years. By the rank and file membership of the Teamsters who endorsed us, I will tell you the Teamsters, we got 62% or something. And I got the endorsement. Oh, what a beautiful endorsement, because I love brilliant people. We don't have too many of them. We have to protect our brilliant people. There aren't too many of them. There aren't too many.
All right, dueling rallies in North Carolina, battleground state, one of 7 battleground states that could swing this election, and it's tight for Trump and Harris right now, deadlocked there in North Carolina. Let's bring in our contributing political correspondent, Rachel Bade. Rachel, we heard from Kamala Harris earlier. She did touch on various issues, but it seems the former president is going more at kind of slamming Kamala Harris and the president and talks of garbage, and here we go. But it's 6 days out. I think that, while Kamala Harris is getting down to the issues, you're kind of wondering, okay, what's Trump going to do these final 6 days? Right now, he's just trying to rally up his base there by taking down his competition.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. 6 days out, I think both candidates are very clearly feeling the pressure right now and responding to it in different ways. Donald Trump, as you know, when he feels threatened, he often lashes out. Kamala Harris, she is sort of known for her discipline and her ability to stay on message, and you're seeing her do that as she tries to sort of scramble up these last votes to win. Look, I mean, this has been sort of a week of both of these candidates trying to refocus the country on their closing message after a pair of sort of unforced errors that were both out of their control. I mean, you just heard Donald Trump. He did open his rally just there talking about asking the crowd whether they're better off now than they were 4 years ago. That's where he wants the nation to be focused. And yet his campaign is still scrambling from the Madison Square Garden rally just a few days ago, where one of the speakers used racist comments against Puerto Ricans. Democrats have very effectively taken those comments, even though they were not by Trump, and tried to sort of tie them to the former president to hurt him in places like Pennsylvania, where there are large Latino and Puerto Rican populations. And Harris, you know, last night delivering this really disciplined speech again on the National Mall, talking about turning a page on Donald Trump and his chaos, wanting to work with people who are of a different opinion and different party than her, as opposed to sicking the military on them, as Donald Trump has suggested he will do. And yet, you know, she was sort of thrown off balance a little bit too when Joe Biden came out and, you know, made this statement last night that some people took as an insult to voters who are backing Donald Trump. And so, look, she's trying to refocus the message, like I said, on what she wants to close out on instead of what Republicans are now using to try to attack her with, Kira.
When we woke up this morning, everybody wanted to sort of see what the response was to her speech. And unfortunately, it was President Biden and the comments he made about Trump supporters being garbage that really dominated the news. You think that's going to hurt her at all?
I mean, look, I sort of am sympathetic to this argument that, you know, this is not Kamala Harris herself making this, right? It's Joe Biden making the speech. This is very different than, say, Hillary Clinton when she said in 2016 that Trump supporters are basically this basket of deplorables, and that really blew back on her. Kamala Harris has made a point time and time again, whether it be this morning when she sort of gently rebuked Biden, saying she would never say this about any sort of supporters of Donald Trump. She would never say a negative thing about them. She also said that in the Bret Baier interview on Fox News when the conservative host tried to sort of say, look, do you think these people are stupid? And she said, I would never, ever say that about, you know, Trump supporters or any Americans. So, look, I think Republicans are very good at sort of unifying behind a message, and I think what they saw last night was a perfect opportunity to pivot from the Puerto Rican comments controversy that has really been, you know, center stage in the past 3 days since the Madison Square Garden rally, and they're going to use this as much as they can. They're going to talk about it constantly. You see them doing it already to try to say she's the one that is divisive and she's the one who has an us versus them mentality. So it just really it's unclear how much is going to move the needle, but Republicans are certainly going to try, Kira.
Meanwhile, Trump is there calling Kamala Harris names, President Joe Biden names. It continues. Yeah, I know. All right, well, bottom line, we are going to be following all these campaign rallies as we are moving closer and closer to Election Day, and it is close. Rachel Bade, thank you so much. We'll talk more.